Mr. Gibbons, how are you?
I'm good, Jose. How's everything with you? How are you feeling?
Feeling much better. Thanks for asking.
Good.
You still at work, I see.
Huh?
I said you're still at work.
Still at work? Yeah. Easier than trying to conduct a meeting with two twins rumpusing around my apartment.
Well, that's two twins is rough. What age are they?
Almost 6 and 8 days, 9 days.
Okay.
Now they're great kids, but you know,
At least they're at the age of they're at the age of reasoning. You know, I got a 3 and 1. It's give and take.
Oh yeah, I remember. It can be really difficult.
No, I know. Hey, Rev, good to see you too.
Good to see you also. Keep your eyes on the road.
Oh, eyes are always on the road. There's our superstar, Carly.
Hi, Officer Gibbons. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. Survived the storm, right? So wasn't that bad. Feel pretty good.
That's great.
Yeah. How about you? You make it out in the winter weather, or you stayed in?
I've been in for the last 2 days.
Okay. Good.
And you stay in. It's too slippery out here. I almost slipped twice.
Wow.
We got Jeremy here as well. Hey, Jeremy, how are you? Let's see who else.
Good evening, everyone.
Sandy's
How you
here.
doing?
Judith's
Snowy
here.
day.
Snowy day. You see, normally, I was telling Carly, normally on a snow day, I would have canceled the meeting, be like, you know, it makes it dangerous for everyone to get to the meeting, but that's not an excuse anymore.
Hey,
He's
we're at
still
quorum.
shoveling out here, though. What do you say?
We're waiting for a few more people to get on. No, someone's having a conversation.
What, are you driving, Jose?
Judith, did Judith get a phone? A phone with a camera?
Yep.
What?
Wow.
Congratulations. Oh my goodness. Nice job.
This is a test. I don't know if I'm going to be good at it, but we'll see.
Listen, it's better than hearing you over dial-up.
Well, that might happen in a few minutes. We'll see.
I think you were one of the few people that would call in. All right, so we're, Carly, where are we with quorum?
We have quorum now.
I'm at quorum, perfect. All right, everyone, thank you for being here. Tonight's Community Board 11 Public Safety and Transportation meeting. I'd like to adopt tonight's agenda. We usually vote on this. I'm gonna double check this month with executive if that's necessary, but can I have someone
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Yolanda, and I need a second.
Second by Michelle Wilshire Clement.
Hi, Michelle, nice to have you.
Hello.
All right, so we're adopting the agenda. Thank you all for being here. We all know how the committee is run, but just a refresher course in case. Typically, we have presentations. We wait for questions at the end. Questions from the committee come first, and then we'll have the public. We have a few different items on the agenda, so we're gonna get a start on. And since I saw Officer Gibbons first, we're gonna start with our community updates.
Jose, do you want me to go through the welcoming remarks and then I'll do a roll call attendance?
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that,
remarks.
Officer Gibbons. Okay. Yeah, so most of you have heard this already. And I'm sure, as you know, all of our meetings are conducted by video conference for the time being, Links to register to attend the video conferences for each of our committees are available on our meetings calendar on our website, which is cb11m.org. To avoid crosstalk and help the meeting run effectively, panelists and attendees are asked to keep yourselves on mute when you're not speaking. Those participating by phone can dial *6 to unmute. If you wish to share a question or a comment, you may do so by using the raise hands function. I will be monitoring to make sure that your hands are recognized, and those who are participating by phone can dial *9 to raise your hand. As Jose mentioned, committee members will be called on first and then attendees. Please keep your question or comments brief. And now I will go through the roll call attendance. Altamirano,
Present.
Brown,
Present.
Collier,
Present.
Diaz, he might be in the attendees. Let me just double check. Diaz, is that you in the attendees? Dial *6 to unmute. All right, I'll go back to him after. Fabrero,
I'm here.
Garcia,
Here.
great. Mac,
Here.
Morris. Oh, I see she's on, but it doesn't look like she has a microphone next to her name. We'll come back to you, Jessica. Sanders.
Here. She's connecting. Jessica's connecting to the audio.
Okay. Okay, and Wiltshire Clement.
I am here.
Okay, and Jessica, if you're.
Here, sorry.
Yes, we hear you. Okay, great. We have quorum.
Yay. We never have a problem with quorum, thankfully. I think only once. All right, so now we're going to start our updates. So Gibbons, if you may.
Thank you, Jose. It's good to see everybody. I'm Officer Gibbons from the 23rd Precinct. I'm going to give you the crime report for our precinct. I'm going to give the numbers year to date and talk about the various crimes year to date, since that's the most convenient category of discussion, I believe. So we are down in crime in the 7 majors year to date, 4.3% for the year. That's a turnaround from last year, but really it's modest success. It's really a difference of only 4 major crimes, 89 so far this year versus 93 during the same time frame last year. Just for your own knowledge, we are down citywide year to date 21.3% in major crime, down across all categories, significantly in fact, except for auto theft, car theft, which is up 13.2%, and that continues a trend from last year. But the numbers both in the precinct and citywide are positive, heading in the right direction. Let me go through the major categories of crime and talk about what's happened year to date. Murders, we've had 2. There were 0 at this point last year. So that is up. We finished with 9 last year. We've already had 2 this year. So that is significant and tragic. On the 26th of January, you may have heard a son shot his mother in the head at 70 East 108th Street in the confines of the Lehman houses. He shot her once. She expired. He fled to the street. He fired shots at a complete stranger, just randomly, about 2 blocks north at 110th Street and Madison Avenue. Doubled back towards Lehman houses, towards 108, and we caught him in the street. We had a great description over the air. Our patrol officers caught him without incident. Although if you see the body camera footage, it was white knuckle stuff. He reached for a gun in his pocket, attempted to pull it out, but it looked like it got caught in his pocket. He ran across the street and then laid down in the middle of the street before our officers were able to take him safely into custody. Thankfully, no shots were fired in the street, but obviously a horrendous, tragic incident. A family is completely destroyed. On the 20th of January, a stabbing victim was discovered following a 911 call, was discovered inside an apartment, 1385 Fifth Avenue, which is Taft Houses. There were 10 people inside the apartment eating, drinking. There was an argument that resulted in this person being stabbed. All occupants of the apartment were interviewed by our detective squad. Information was obtained. 6 days later, the suspect was arrested on the 26th. Those are our murders. Rapes, there were 2. One was a New Year's Eve party following midnight. The suspect was known to the victim. He forced himself on her at the party. The second one occurred actually 2 years ago, but was reported on January 1st of this year. It was a statutory rape case where a 15-year-old had sex with a 12-year-old victim. Robberies, we're up in robberies 15 versus 10. There were 5 domestic robberies, 5 muggings, what we call strong arm robberies, 3 conducted with a knife, and 2 were commercial robberies, businesses that were robbed. 15 versus 10. Felony assaults, we also up with felony assaults, 35 versus 23, 35 this year, 23 the same time frame last year. Of note, in those 35, 20 are domestic violence related felony assaults, including 4 in which parents discipline their child and resulting in injuries, which is pretty rare to see. 4, one comes across every now and then, but 4 serious incidences of corporal punishment like that is very rare and something that we need to keep an eye at. 3 were prisoners assaulting police officers, and 4 were shootings. The shootings were on February 1st in East River, 455 East 102. A man was shot in the leg while he was in his car. We believe it was a targeted shooting. Even though the people shooting were strangers, they were enlisted by somebody as retribution for a prior incident. On the 31st of January at 1738 Lexington, a man was found with a gunshot wound to his torso in the second floor hallway. The investigation is ongoing. The victim is not helping us with that investigation. On the 26th, I mentioned the incident, the tragic murder of the woman in 70 East 108 by her son. And then lastly, a shooting on the 8th at 1761 3rd Avenue on the 5th floor. The suspect was arrested on the 27th of January by our detective squad. We believe it was narcotics related. Moving on, burglaries, we are way down, which is a first for at least 12 months. We were up every month last year. Burglaries 8 versus 17 last year. Indo-Pak Halal was burglarized twice in the same night because the cellar door into the side from the sidewalk was open, and unfortunately two different burglars took advantage, stealing cooking oil and toilet paper. Lexington Pizza Parlor, there was what appeared to be on camera a very intoxicated person, peed up against the side of the restaurant, and then decided, why not just break the glass and take iPads. 2 were trucks, commercial trucks. One was a package theft at River Crossing. One was a construction site, and one was Dunkin' Donuts at 108 and 3rd Avenue. Grand larcenies, we are way down in grand larcenies, also 26 this year versus 40 last year. But of note, among those 26, 5 were scams. We didn't see any in December. We've seen 5 already in January. So be aware, please. Do not send money to anyone that you do not know. Doesn't matter what they say over the phone, unless you have independently confirmed who they are, called them, something like that. And also, please, 2 of them were. We've seen a lot more of this in 2020, and now we're seeing in 2021. 2 were people threatening to reveal very private images. Whether they had them or not is another question. We're seeing that a lot. Please notify the police. Do not give in to that. A lot of it is the vast majority of that is simply a scam. They do not have your photos of intimate images. Again, with grand larcenies, 3 were snatches from the person. 1 a cell phone, 1 a purse, 1 a wallet. No real trend there. 2 were package thefts over $1,000. Last category, grand larceny of autos. For the first time in a long time, we are down, even though the city continues to be up. We only had one, was a car with the keys left running, or I should say the keys in the ignition and the car left running and on First Avenue. So please, again, we saw that happen a lot in 2020. Be mindful, don't leave your keys in your car on. Last thing I just want to mention before I leave off, we've taken 13 guns off the street this month, 9 by the 23rd precinct, 4 by PSA 5 within the confines of the 23rd precinct. They're out there, 13 guns. We took 7 in 5 days at one point, 7 in 6 days at one point. It's just something that we should all be aware of. It is frightening. I have nothing further to add to that other than I'll keep everyone abreast whether those numbers go up or down. Thank you. Any questions?
Carly, let me know if anyone raises their hand.
Oh, okay, sure. Did you want to do the 2 reports and then questions after? That we have been doing?
Yes, actually, but is Officer Rivera here?
Yes,
I
he's
am
here.
on.
Oh, there
on.
we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Let's do this.
All right. All right. We'll go and then with questions, right? Okay.
That's right.
All right. Cool. All right. So I'll just go over the 28th day and everybody's doing well. Everybody stayed warm yesterday. I am tired from shoveling so much snow, but anyway. All right. The 28th day. Okay. So murders, we had 0 at this point in time last year to 1. That was on, if anybody heard in the neighborhood, that was 126th Street and Lexington Avenue. That case most likely is been solved. It looks like that it was gang related. We're still going to the particulars of it, but we do have a possible, I know there was an arrest made sometime late last week. We've had 2 rapes last year, 1 at this time this year. Just, like rape can come into any forms. It was a 76-year-old woman. It started off as consensual, I guess. And then she suffers from dementia and things of that sort. And she asked the individual to stop. She can't remember who it was. So, it just affects all ages. It's just not kind of, I think, the definition that people might have in their minds. Robberies, we are down 19 to 13 this year. Felonious assaults, we are actually up from 15 last year to 21 this year. Burglaries were down 7 to 5. It's a bunch of things. It's from cars to just apartments. And grand larcenies, just a lot of items depending on how much the items are worth. 22, we're actually even. 22 to 22 last year. Grand larceny autos, just vehicles that are just taken. They said just cars was parked, they come back the next day, and the vehicles were not at the location where the owners left them. I do want to touch on kind of what Pete said, and I think which is the alarming thing, just to even from my eyes, and it kind of goes with the grand larceny autos, and I think we touched base on it last time we talked, is the paper plates on the vehicles. So yeah, what we're coming in contact with, which is a lot, is these fake plates or these paper plates or out-of-state jersey, and what we're finding is that, yes, these cars are stolen, but then we're also finding guns. And along with the 23rd precinct, we found 13 guns. Actually, I'm sorry, we bested them by 14. And we're not trying to best anybody on that. So 14 guns. I feel like every time I come into the precinct, there's an arrest and there's a gun associated with it. A lot of these guns are being found just with regular car stops. And, it's not like you're trying to stereotype, but with the paper plates or the out-of-state plates, and there's a traffic violation if they're expired, and officers are just doing routine traffic stops. And then if there's an arrestable offense, you get the car back to the precinct, and then they're finding guns you're finding all types of guns in the vehicle. So that's kind of alarming. It's just state of affairs in the city right now. I think the people that use these type of weapons are just more brazen now than ever, knowing that they're not going to be stopped, and people are carrying. That's just something for the community to be aware of. Getting back to I want to just to make sure, let people know, the homicide that we did take, there was, there's certain things that we try to help. We have Shot Spotter and all these things. But that's why it behooves the community to let us know as much information as we can. There was a shooting the day before there, which possibly we had a shots fired job. And I think there was about 20 shell casings, and there was no information from anyone. And then we had the homicide the following day. We just need, we need all hands on deck to kind of curb all this stuff, which is, it's just a very, very trying time during these, like more stuff that we don't need to be dealing with what's going on right now. But if that's all I have, if there's any questions, I guess me and Pete will take some.
Okay, so we have Marissa first, and then we have Red Brown.
Hi, good evening. Thank you both for presenting, and shout out to 3. I saw the precinct in the Unforgiven, or I forgot what not the Unforgiven, one of the shows. Anyway, I had a question about like identity theft and I guess like accounts and a lot of the crimes that have been happening as it relates to either online scams or banking scams or anything of that nature. Do you have any resources that you can share with us about what to do about that, or how your precinct has been handling that, and what we can share out with the community about things of that nature going on?
Well, we've always had, at times when these things become more prevalent, our crime prevention officers have always, and we have given out like informationals. We've tweeted stuff on social media, especially if we see an uptick. A lot of times the elderly are prey for these things, like the ID thefts and all these type of scams that, okay, oh, you won the lotto and you have to give us $10,000 so we can release the millions of dollars to you. That's the way we've handled it before. Is this something that you're seeing in the community? Is it more
No,
prevalent
I mean,
now?
I'm just thinking now because there are a lot of spam calls now. There are a lot of, calls, and there has been disclosure. I am on the banking side, but there has been a lot of scams going on right now that are targeting different organizations. So I just didn't know if there was anything that you guys are handing out or any information that you're passing along as it relates to that area. But, if you're just in general telling people just to be cautious and on the lookout, that, that's fine. I just didn't know if there was to target.
Yeah, we have, in addition, just like when Aaron was talking about our presentations, we have a ton of printed material that we give out at those meetings as well. We also put it on Twitter and Facebook. So it's available to you guys. If somebody wants it, I can send it to them and they can share it with as widely as possible. So regarding ID theft specifically, and scams in general, we have both. The scams take so many forms, and it's constantly morphing, but they all share basically the same characteristics. It's either fear and intimidation, or pretending to be somebody else, or whatever. But it's all, somebody on the phone asking for money, asking for gift cards, green cards, whatever it is. And sure, we got tons of material that I can give. I can give it to community board, and then they can give it out to the committee, or I can give it to you, Marissa, directly, and you can share it with anyone you like.
That would be helpful.
Great.
Thank you.
But
Okay.
to
I'll-
kind of
I'll
continue
email
that,
it
how would you report a scam? Like, who do you report it to, even if you didn't fall for it? Let's say you noticed it was a scam. I recently had a situation where it was a website for a car. Everything was set, price was set. It was really low for that kind of car. And then they sent me an eBay link, and it was identical to eBay, but it was something was strange. It was bothering me. And I noticed that it wasn't ebay.com, it was ebay/com.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily I know, then I searched under eBay for that item. It didn't exist. And luckily I didn't fall for it. But how do you report these things? Because I would hate, like, we would all hate for it to continue to happen, right? Like it didn't happen to me, but it could happen to the next person.
Right. You can report it to us, and we'll be sort of a general clearinghouse. We'll try to notify the best agency, because like Social Security, they want to know themselves so they can share with their customers. Con Edison, they want to know themselves so they can share with their customers. Better Business Bureau wants to know if there is something like that, if there's a business that's sort of an illegal business, or someone pretending to be someone they're not, and advertising and then taking money and taking off. But we can certainly accept that information first and then share it with the appropriate agency. And it may be local, but nine times out of 10, it's actually someone who's operating from a different country or a different state. And
Oh, this
you
was
know,
a different state. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Minnesota or something like that.
yeah, and then we can share it with the jurisdiction in which it originates.
But just
If the crime hasn't been actually completed, we can still share it as an informational update to the jurisdiction where it's happening, and they can check in on it.
and a quick Google search says the report most common scams, call the Federal Trade Commission.
Good to know.
All right.
And I think we had one more question.
Thank
Rev,
you
was that
both.
you?
We have a few more questions. So we have Rev Brown next, and then we have Michelle, and then we have one from the public as well.
I want to thank you both for your report. It's always good to be informed about what's going on, especially in the shadows. You know, oftentimes you don't see it right up front, but it's good to know. I live in Washington Lex houses, and a couple of weeks ago, several women were cautioned to be careful because it was supposed to have been 2 women found murdered in the building. One was on a roof and another one was in a lobby somewhere or something of that nature. Is there any validity to that?
No, well, okay, so there was unfortunately a victim found on the rooftop of 215 East 102. She was deceased when we found her. We have, the investigation is deep and ongoing, but we have results back from the medical examiner that don't indicate any kind of trauma or foul play. That's not the end of the investigation, but that's one heavy piece of evidence. Now, from that incident, from that tragic event, the demise of this young woman in December, rumors spread, and I was getting calls about 5 and 6 people dead, and that we were covering up a mass murder in Washington houses. That is completely inaccurate. There was one incident where we found someone who deceased on the roof of 215 East 102. We found her the day that it happened, and with plenty of video evidence leading up to the incident, we have a party of interest. But the case has to be put together, and like I said, no trauma, no foul play. The individual may not have be a suspect for murder. He may be a suspect in other crimes relating to disposal of the body.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, you're up.
Hi, I would like to say thank you for both of your reports. And also, I was very glad to hear that, not of the incidences of the murders, but that the arrests were made, and they were made in a fashion that that was a positive arrest, if you could say. I was concerned of the amount of guns that were found, 13 in 2-3 and 14 in 2-5 precinct. And I wanted to find out if there were going to be any more programs or events so that guns could be taken off the street in a give back situation. That happened a few months ago and it was extremely positive. Is there any plan for something like that to happen again, since it's becoming so prevalent? People are nervous. People are purchasing guns. People want to protect themselves. However, there is another way. Can there be another program to take back the gun night or whatever? I don't know what you would call it in the future, but can something like that be established again?
I think what happens is we've had it, and obviously I think it will take place again, especially if the numbers keep being the numbers than what they are. We have to see. I think we did it at Bethel Gospel Church was the last one, and I think there was maybe about 100 guns. I might be mistaken, but I think a lot of guns were turned in, but it's pushed out citywide, and everybody can just show up, and it's there's no questions, no questions asked. That is something. It helps and it doesn't help, and because unfortunately sometimes the people who have the guns aren't going to be the ones to turn them in, and those are we can do that to help going forward. It's definitely an avenue to help. That's what I'm saying, that it doesn't alleviate, but it doesn't alleviate everything. I'll just give a story. There was a
this is Carlos.
The individual that was killed from Lexington at 126 in Lexington. The funeral was on 116 and First Avenue, and there was about 100 people. You can't stop them from all congregating, and just from that alone, I think we pulled 4 guns out of that, just for that from the funeral. So it's one thing to say, okay, we can have these gun buyback programs, and that helps, but a lot of times it's to the avenues of, are we really getting the guns out of the people that are using them? And that's always the question. And we'll see. It's definitely something that, when I speak to my boss, if the community feels that it's warranted, that it's something that we can push forward to, and that we can make the phone calls and do what we have to. But these are things that, it's a catch-22 in a sense. Like, we can have it, it helps some, but it doesn't really get the guns out of the hands of the people that we don't want to have.
Hello, Carlos. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, Carlos, we hear you.
And I have a follow-up
thanks.
question in finding out. It sounded like it was not a common incident to have 14 guns being apprehended in one precinct and another 13 guns in such a short period of time.
That's true.
Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, we're definitely emphasizing those numbers because they are pronounced. It's more than I've seen in 18 years over a given period of time.
Yes, especially within a month. So in 28 days, yeah, that's a lot. And just think the two precincts neighbor each other. So just do the math, and that's just in that area. We're not talking about the 2.8. We're not talking about the 3.2 also. So it's just an alarming number.
Okay, I just think that it sounds like there is a time for a gun buyback, even though it isn't. It could be a Band-Aid, but it's bringing up to the forefront that something is wrong.
I just wanted to jump in at the end of that. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Michelle, but I believe, and I think this is a little bit premature for me to speak, but I think there will be a gun buyback happening again in West Harlem, Central West Harlem, and we've been planning it, and it's just going to be coming out in a couple months. But I do recognize that we did, and in joint with the NYPD, did have one a few months ago at Bethel Gospel. Thank you. They're not obviously on this call, but to have such a phenomenal partner in the community, as well as other folks that got the word out. There were many credible messengers. There were many people in the community. It was a joint effort, so it takes the word being spread out. But I'll tell you what I noticed was there were a lot of people that also weren't from East Harlem coming. As Officer Rivera said, there are people outside the community that came and brought those guns in to return them, and there were people. But the point is, I think, and there are a couple points I'm trying to make is, and I agree, if we have it in Central in West Harlem, I think that invites maybe someone that feels apprehensive about coming into some area that they don't feel comfortable going to, or talking to someone else about returning that weapon for them with their name being attached to it. So I think there are good and bads to this, but again, it invites more conversations about how to return such a weapon. And I think I was going to add a couple pieces later, but I think there are people brainstorming about how can we do this safely. And there are officers, there are groups that want to do this and not just be a one-off. So it's a constant conversation. And I don't mean to interrupt. And once it's my turn, I can speak a little bit more. But that question's great, and there's a need for more attention all around.
I would like to be a part of the conversation.
Definitely, and I really appreciate that.
Okay. Unless
We had one more question from the public.
So Carlos actually has his hand raised, and then we have one question from the public.
All right, that'll be our last question after Carlos. So we have 2 questions and then that's it.
Okay, 2 questions. You always talk about Central Harlem and Harlem, but what about doing the guns in East Harlem, doing the program in East Harlem? That's number 1. And the second question I had was for the 23rd precinct, and that is the drug-infested area that we have in Taino Towers. We actually at 123rd Street every day they're selling drugs right next to the entrance of the garage.
Okay.
And the grocery store, but primarily in the garage area. And you guys drive right by there, see them, and just keep on going. So, can anybody just elaborate on what you guys doing about that in that area?
I'm not so aware of that. It's one thing I can speak to the sector, the NCO sector, to see if that's an issue that's come up.
It's major. I'm telling you, I live in the building, so I see it every day, and I see you guys drive right by it.
Okay. All right. I will look into it. All right. You said by the garage, correct?
By the garage, yeah, right on 120 2nd Street.
Do you know what they're selling?
And near the grocery store as well, right on 3rd.
Is it K2 or are they selling something else?
They're selling everything. Anything like people come from all over. They just congregate there, 4 or 5 guys, and they just start selling whatever they.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's K2, but I know that it's drugs for sure.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you so much.
And I'll request, I'll speak to the Community Affairs Bureau and Chief Madry's office, who with the district attorney and Jeremy and other agencies organize these gun buybacks. And I'll ask them if they've considered East Harlem and if they will in the future. Thank you, Carlos.
That'll be great, because everything is Central Harlem and Harlem, but nothing in East Harlem. And then you were talking about having all these guns in East Harlem. We should, concentrate in this area.
Okay, agreed. Thank you, Carlos.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Crystal Glover's next.
Crystal? Is it Crystal that's next?
Yeah, Crystal, I'm trying to unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Community Board 11, for your meeting, this meeting. One question first. I also am concerned about hearing about a young woman. I was told it was 220 in Washington houses. A caretaker told me a young woman was found on 220's roof, naked, tied up, and dead. You said it was 215. I heard it was 220. I'm concerned that because of the pandemic, normally PSA 5 would attend tenant council meetings, tenant association, tenant council meetings, the monthly meetings. They would come with the statistics, etc., at the monthly tenant meetings. But since the pandemic, the meetings have been canceled. Some developments are actually doing Zoom meetings. So if anyone's out there listening, that's part of Washington houses. But so I was told she was a young woman found naked. I'm concerned because even though we're in the pandemic, I think some type of literature should go up in the buildings. Yes, we're in a era of computers, etc. But the old way is still good. You slap a flyer up on the wall, especially if a person has not been found for killing this person. If this was murder and the person is still out there, we residents should be informed that yes, this person was raped and the killer is still out there. So it would behoove the precinct to put flyers up the same way they put flyers up when those Chinese restaurants people were getting robbed and beat up a few years ago. We were made aware of it. There were flyers that were put up. There was meetings about it, and so there should be some kind of information put up in the buildings
So,
because for
so
those of us who,
I understand what you're saying. I just want to break in for 1 second. So there's no evidence. So I spoke about this a little bit. I don't know if you were listening. There's no evidence of assault, sexual or otherwise. The toxicology and medical examiner's report came back indicating a different reason for her death, which doesn't involve necessarily another party.
was
I
she
don't want to say
naked? Was that part
I don't
true
want
that
to
she
say
was naked?
I don't want to say too much.
Was she
It's still
naked, sir?
it's an ongoing
Crystal,
investigation,
Crystal,
Mel.
he can't comment on an
Oh,
ongoing
he can't
investigation.
tell me. He can't say whether she was naked or not.
No, he can't.
Okay.
Still, listen, it's a very complex case because there is another individual involved because that person was with the victim. And we know that. And that actual person is in custody for other violations. But apart from this crime, putting together these cases takes sometimes a lot of time and a lot of information. So putting stuff up on flyers and posting it on walls and having everybody talking about it may not be the best thing. I understand why you'd want that information, but I'm happy to be here to share that we don't believe there is any ongoing threat. We don't believe there was any ongoing threat immediately afterwards because we immediately identified the individual who was with this person. And we kept very careful tabs on that person until we had probable cause to arrest that individual for other crimes.
Excuse me. Before I'm whatever. I'd like to say, the caretaker that told me this was about a week ago when he told me, oh, this woman was found up on the roof, butt naked, tied up, dead. Okay, so clearly the conversation is out there. It's not,
Yeah.
whether you post flyers or not, people are still wondering, well, yo, did they find the guy? Well, we don't know. So we're under the assumption that there's a rapist running around and what's being done about it is what we're wondering. So I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. But I don't know if if management can do something from their end to make residents aware that you have nothing to worry about. We're on top of this, etc. The other thing that I'd like to the other thing I like to mention is the mailboxes. I'm gonna be real quick. The mailboxes, no one cylinder is unique. I had an issue with my box where there were about several other cylinders that matched my box. When I went to the post office and talked about it, I went to City Hall and mentioned it, until the media came to my building. And she actually saw me, the media, someone from TV, saw me take my key and put it in several boxes and they opened. Those boxes opened. And before that afternoon was over, management came because somebody apparently told, yo, the TV people are in the building. She came and she had the caretaker change my cylinder. And last point, every cylinder that they all had the same cylinder number. Every number was the same as mine. So apparently when they get these keys, they get them in stacks, etc. And so here it is. This is a serious, serious situation. Because if I'm expecting certain types of mail and it's not coming, who's to say that someone in the building is not opening my mailbox? And last point, someone put my son's ID in my mailbox one day. And I'm like, how could that have happened? It couldn't have been the mail person. Couldn't have been the what do you call those people? Postal people, because it was 11 o'clock at night. Someone found that key and they put it in my mailbox. That's what made me realize, whoa, what the heck's going on? And made me go down and check my box, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to make the police aware that that's going on. Thank you for the time you've given me. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. And with that, that was the last question for the night. Officer Givens, Officer Rivera, thank you so much always for attending our meeting.
Can I sneak in a thank you also?
I don't know who's speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Dawn. I'm sorry, it's Dawn.
Oh, hey, Don.
Hi
Yeah,
there.
Don also says thank you. But
Yeah,
it's
no,
just, our time is running, and it's like, it's already been 45 minutes.
Well, I wanted to thank the officers who participated in the MLK Day of Action. It really means something when the officers show up to those events and serve food. And I just want them to get the proper, thank you for that, if that's
Sounds
okay.
great. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. I'll pass that along. Thank you so much for recognizing him.
All right, and now we're gonna move on to the DA. I know we have Jeremy here. And I know we, go ahead, Jeremy, it's your show now.
What's going on, everybody? Yeah, I just wanted to echo with some of the comments earlier. Definitely appreciate what's going on in the 2-5, as well as members of the PSA 5 that obviously aren't on this call. But I think it was last week and as well as this week, had the opportunity in our team, as well as our crime strategy unit, to meet with the youth coordinating officers from the 2-3, 2-5, as well as PSA 5. It was great. It was interesting to hear what they do on a daily basis. It was, and to see how we can support them, whether it was, the right staff, connecting youth to resources, but it was great to hear their different approach to when they speak with youth, whether they're interviewing someone or out and about on their daily job. So that's an ongoing conversation. We'll be meeting with them in joint with Exodus, Union Settlement, and Go So Save monthly. That was really good. That's a quick update on that. But from that, I kind of do want to go back to what we were speaking of regarding just really quickly, because it ties in and it doesn't, but regarding youth gun violence or gun violence, it's definitely something. So when we talk about having one, in East Harlem, I think I want to acknowledge the individual that was speaking earlier. So we did have one in East Harlem, and I will bring this feedback to our office, and it gets definitely kicked up the ladder, whether we have one soon. But as I mentioned, there will be another one happening in West Harlem, Central Harlem, in the next month or two, and I'll keep everyone updated about that. And again, I think there are benefits to having it a little away from some of the hot areas. There are downfalls, so we're going to spread the word together and make it as successful as possible. So that's my update on that end. I got a question here, and let me just specify. Sorry, yeah. If I didn't introduce myself, the office. Yeah. So the community partnership unit. That's what I'm with the DA's office, and the crime strategies unit. That's what I was speaking of, as well as the youth coordinating officers with the NYPD from the 2-3, 2-5. If that answers that question, thank you. So the next two updates, I believe they're more for youth and education related, and I'll be bringing this up with the next committee, youth and education. But we'll be having a resume workshop for youth on the 17th and 18th. That will be virtual. We wish we could have it in person. Last year's was really phenomenal, but we're gonna have different staff from our office, different ADAs. It's a good time. We have the breakout groups, and so that's going to be going on. I can usually share a flyer within this chat. I tried earlier. I don't know if I have the feature, but I can email Carly and we can make that happen, as well as I'd like to announce again, February, we're really trying to push getting presentations and resources out for domestic violence, specifically teen dating. February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. We have resources for that. Our team works hard. And again, Carly, if I can, I'd like to share those two flyers with you. If you can get those to the members of the committee, that'd be great. And not to just pull up conversations from earlier. There were talk of scams and ID theft. The thing that jumped to my mind was specifically if there are any elders that are being targeted. We do have an elder abuse unit and a hotline for that, as well as ID theft. So I can put that in the chat. put this all together. But whether it's specific for some of the things that were very specific earlier that were mentioned, I don't know if I can answer that, but we do have some resources regarding scams. Yeah, that's something I was thinking of when you started saying it. I was like, yeah, I've gotten 3 calls already this week for scams, but when they get serious, that's when you have to do something about it. But so thank you for bringing that up earlier. Are there any questions on this, Em?
Jeremy, can you please send me all information so that I can share with other people? This is Kyoka.
Definitely, Kyoko. I'll be doing well. How you doing?
Okay, no hands are raised. Thank you, Jeremy. I am happy to share the information with everybody once you send it over.
All right, and since we just heard.
Oh, did Jose cut out? Looks like he did. Jose?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was saying that we got to cut off. We had Kyoka on, and I believe she had a meeting, so I wanted to know if she had some words or any updates or anything she wanted to share with us.
Our last meeting for the month of January was kind of focused on youth violence. We just basically had a discussion on how we could work better together as a community with the community organizations, along with the elected officials, to have pertinent conversations about like how do we really help each other, which is a conversation that we have ongoing. The bottom line of it was more that we wanted to begin the collaboration that we had with the 2-3 and PSA 5 and continuing those conversations to make sure that we are boots to the ground when something's going on, utilizing the services of SAVE and Union Settlement, and having like kind of deploying people in those areas to kind of just, you know, make sure that they're connecting with the young people. From what I understood from the meeting, that a lot of the youth violence that has been happening was not crew related, thankfully. But kind of like one-offs, and you know, some of them were crew related, but not all of them. But we definitely want to start connecting on the ground instead of trying to make sure that, you know, people are bringing the kids in, because they're definitely not coming into us, so we need to be out there with them. And so that was kind of the basis of the conversation. But hi everyone, I'm glad to see everyone.
Glad to see you too, Kyoka. We have
Jose, we lost you again. Maybe you should sit down in one spot.
Lyle with us again. Do we have Lyle tonight?
Lyle is not with us.
We're gonna have to find out, because now it's been a few months.
Jose, we lost you again.
Is Jessica on? Maybe she can take over or move us forward.
Yeah.
Carly, it's you. It's all you.
Carly, do you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you. We don't. Oh, yeah, we hear you.
All right, good. I think that's it for our informational updates, right?
Yes.
And Lyle's not here, so let's move into the agenda.
All right. So this is me. So I'm not sure if Jose's frozen again. It looks like he is. So I am going to provide an update about I attended on Friday the Civilian Complaint Review Board special meeting regarding the recently released NYPD disciplinary matrix. When we initially set this month's agenda, we were hoping that CCRB would come and present the matrix. However, they felt that since the matrix and guidelines are a product of NYPD, it's appropriate that NYPD is the agency to present them. So I did reach out. I know that Officer Gibbons said that if he can find someone from NYPD Legal to present the matrix, that would be great. We're definitely still looking for someone more formal to come and present on it. But for now, hopefully this brief summary will be sufficient. So for some context, in January 2019, a panel of judges and former prosecutors made recommendations to improve NYPD's internal discipline process, including which would include a discipline penalty matrix to outline the penalties for a wide variety of possible offenses, both violations of internal department rules and police misconduct during encounters with members of the public. So fast forward 2 years later, that recommendation is what we're discussing here today and what was discussed on Friday. So rather than detail the penalties on the matrix, I encourage you to read the NYPD report if you haven't already and watch the CCRB presentation once it's made available. They told me that they're going to send it over once it's published, and I'll send it over to you. I did want to report on some of the general changes to the matrix, as well as some of the comments and concerns about the matrix raised by both CCRB and members of the public on Friday. Most of the attendees who spoke were members of organizations that work within the realm of criminal justice and criminal defense as well. So the matrix itself is different from what has been used in the past in that the penalty recommendations are generally higher than what they were. Additionally, a range of penalties now exists. So for a given offense, there is a minimum penalty and a maximum penalty. It's important to note that the matrix is not binding and the NYPD commissioner has the final say. However, any deviations from the matrix must be justified in writing. So now just the concerns. The main concern about the matrix is just that the NYPD commissioner retains ultimate discretion to override the matrix, as with CCRB recommendations. NYPD is essentially left to police itself. There are also concerns about the ambiguity of some of the disciplinary actions. For instance, when an officer engages in misconduct during encounters with the public, a common penalty that they'll receive is training. However, it's unclear what's covered in training, how long it is, details like that. The training itself is what is ambiguous. Hopefully we'll be able to get, as I mentioned before, someone from NYPD in to discuss the specifics of the matrix and the different penalties. Until we do, I'll send over that recording of the CCRB meeting. I'm also happy to hear your questions if you have any, and I don't know that I'll be able to answer them personally, but I will forward them, and maybe Officer Gibbons or Detective Rivera might know, but again, I don't expect them to. Yeah, so if you have any questions, I'll take them now. I see a hand up. Oh, Jessica.
Hi, Carly. Thank you for sharing this with us and encouraging the CCRB's video. Is there any mention of the role of CompStat as a data repository, a publicly accessible data repository in the disciplinary matrix and sort of reform mechanisms?
I don't know. That's a short answer. I do not know. However, so the I guess I'm just more curious about how you think it would be used in the disciplinary matrix, just because the matrix is really targeted to provide transparency about the penalties to officers who violate rules or engage in misconduct.
I guess as a, some sort of tool for continuing to keep open channels of transparency in response to behaviors, right? So that CompStat is a publicly accessible data repository, and policing behaviors that result in disciplinary action determined by the matrix are infractions. And I'm just wondering if those two tools may, right now they serve very different purposes. And I'm wondering if there is not a kind of a larger role for the publicly accessible data repository in service to sort of transparency towards disciplinary actions or responses.
Yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying now. Your question, well, correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking if there's anything within that matrix which would kind of require those sorts of actions to be communicated through CompStat, like included as a data point on CompStat?
Perhaps.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know the answer, but I'll write it down and I'll look into it. Maybe that's a question. Maybe if we're able to get NYPD in, that's a question we direct to them. But until then, I will dig deeper on that.
I'm sorry, can you guys ask the question again and clarify exactly what you mean? Because I'm still a little confused on some of the details of what the question is referring to.
Sure, Kyoka, I'll try to clarify. I don't think there is an answer, but I think I'm asking an open-ended question about trying to sync up the tools that we have as members of the public, this disciplinary matrix now being one of those tools, to kind of increase transparency and encourage accountability for behaviors that add up over time. And I don't know, I think CompStat is used very specifically as a tool right now, but ultimately it is a data repository that is publicly accessible. So the types of data that are collected and shared, that's something that could evolve and change based on the kind of the need or the use of the tool. So I'm asking a general question if there is any connection between the disciplinary matrix and CompStat data points, or if that could be a discussion that is broached at some point in time.
Thank you, Jessica. Kyoka gave the thumbs up. So I see Marissa has her hand raised.
Yes, thanks, Carly, for presenting that information. I just had a quick question in terms of, did you say you had reached out to NYPD, I guess specifically the legal department? Did I miss that, or Officer Gibbons? If somebody could report this evening.
I'll reach out to legal to see if they're available. My apologies. The last 4 days have been, I was upstate and handling some personal business, but I'll reach out to them and maybe through Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, they can arrange for someone to be available to discuss and present the matrix.
Yeah, thank you. I think that would be helpful to answer, even in more detail, some of the questions that we have here, just not to put it all on you, but thank you both for reporting out on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will before next time. My apologies to everyone.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Appreciate your help. We were supposed to have CCRB on the line, and they called me yesterday. CCRB met. It was a special meeting of CCRB on Friday. And when I had initially reached out to CCRB before then, they said, wait until Friday when we have our meeting. And it was last minute that they canceled. He called me yesterday. So yeah, so it's not on you, Officer Gibbons, but yeah, it would be great if we can get someone from legal in.
Okay.
We do have 2 hands raised from the public, Crystal and then Rebecca.
Hi, it's me again. This is Zoom, so I don't see why they couldn't be here. It's not like they had to travel through all the slush and snow. But I'm sorry. The question I have, because I do watch, I did hear the report from City Council about the Matrix and all of this other stuff. So I got a lot of good information from watching the City Council. But the question I have is, this may not be pertaining to the disciplinary system penalty guidelines. It's a question about the community councils at the different PSAs. Okay, so I'm in PSA 5. So the monthly last Tuesday of the month meetings have been canceled. It's partly because of pandemic. I think they said the president was sickly or something. So the fact that life goes on and it doesn't stop, the fact that the night developments are not having their monthly meetings and statistics will not be shared because there's no monthly meetings anymore. I had suggested to an officer about doing a Zoom meeting. This officer is in PSA 5. I said that, and he actually brought it up. He actually said, I'd be willing to do a Zoom meeting. He gave me the days he had available so that those of us who do have computer and Android phones, etc., can continue, because we still live in the community. We want, how do you say, one monkey don't stop a show. The folks are still punching clocks, and murders and killings and so forth is still going on. So people like myself and others would still like to know what's going on in our communities. So can the community board arrange for there to be Zoom meetings monthly to continue the community council meetings with our PSAs? Did I make myself clear? I try to speak clear so people can understand me the first time. Oh, last thing I want to say, I tuned in at 6:30, but I didn't get through for some reason till about 6:45. So I did miss the first 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you.
That was the best 5 or 10 minutes of the meeting. Sorry, Crystal, you missed.
I knew I would miss something good. But I really hope you can accommodate, because the PSAs are still on the clock. You're still punching in. We're in the era, I do have to say this, we are in an era of dysfunction. Talks of defunding police and all the stuff that's going on. And you have people in my community who love the police, who will kiss your feet, the police. They will kiss the police feet. They want to know, are there still vertical checks going on? Are our buildings still under vertical checks? They want to know. Everything is ghost right now. So the issue of having a Zoom meeting and folks making every effort for communities to participate, whether you have a computer, an Android phone, or whatever, this business needs to continue, not only to show Dermot Shea and City Council and all these people, not only to show them that, this community really have a relationship with their officers, but it shows the city, it shows the mayor and all of these folks that we are still in tune with one another. You see where I'm going with this? And so, yeah. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. Thank you. That was a lot.
Do you know your community affairs officers at PSA 5, Officers Vega and Lujan?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of
Call
those are actually one that said he'd be willing to do the Zoom. He gave
Okay.
I think, yeah, he said he'd be willing to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, keep bothering them. Get them to do it. If the president of their community council isn't willing or able to do it, convince those officers to conduct a meeting outside of the council, just sort of maybe an informational update coming from the precinct on Zoom.
Right.
And to reconnect with the council at a later time when they're able to get back up and running.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware they weren't doing the meeting. You're certainly welcome to join our Zoom meetings. We have them on the fourth Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock.
What's the how do I get into that? What's
Gibbons,
the,
why you trying to take my shine, Gibbons? Come on.
what,
Yeah,
how
well,
do I
I knew you would chime in too, but I got the mic. So listen,
how do I zoom in, Gibbons? How do I
I'm going to
zoom
give you my phone number so you can call me and give me your email address so I can add you to our blast. Do you have
okay.
email?
Well, that's, yeah. You want me
Okay,
to, how you say, you want me to call you, you said?
Yeah, call me, please.
What's your number?
212-860-6430.
212-860-6430.
6430.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to take a piece of the question really quickly, and I'm going to try to be as fast as possible. First of all, Crystal, how are you? My name is Keoka Jackson. I'm the president of the 25th Precinct Community Council. So just a part of education, the community council and the community board is two separate, totally separate things. So they can't mandate or schedule a community council meeting. However, I think it is important. Maybe I'll reach out to the president of the PSA 5 to try to help her maybe get some Zoom meetings scheduled. So myself at the 2-5, 2-3, we meet via Zoom every month, and we've been doing that since last March, I believe, right, Gibbons? What I will say is, one, it is very enlightening to hear a community member who is wanting to stay active, who wants to be involved, who wants to have a voice. So we appreciate you so much. Secondly, Gibbons stole my shine a little bit, but I was going to say that you can also join in the 2-5 or the 2-3, because we also do cover a lot of, because we all kind of touch the same areas, so to speak, like 2-3 touches some of, PSA 5, and, we all kind of like work together. And so you'll get information that is relevant to your particular community at either meeting. So you can do the 2-5, you can do the 2-3. I'll put my email in the chat, and I'll put you on our blast as well. But the other thing that I was going to say is again, Gibbons stole my shine, that reaching out to the community affairs officers to do a Zoom meeting just as an informational session would be a great idea. But we also are mandated to have like these task force. So our task force meets, we don't really meet regularly. I don't know if Officer Rivera is on the phone right this second, but we don't meet regularly, but we definitely meet when something is happening in the community that needs to be talked about and discussed with the task force. And so maybe trying to join the task force like that, so that you can probably share the information with the people in your community until your council begins to meet again.
Yeah, you're welcome. You said thank you to me, so I'm saying you're welcome. I don't mean to take over the meeting, but I mean, I got to fit in where I can. And over here, in East Harlem, it's like the tumbleweed blowing in the wind. In the Western movie, it's just quiet, it's ghosts. We don't know if there are verticals going on. We feel safe because, let's face it, I didn't get cracked in my head yet, but it's still very quiet, and quiet can be scary. And so I think, like when I found out about the woman on the roof and all these kind of things here, it puts a little fear in you. So like I said, we're in that era of, oh, we want to defund the cops because they get away with this and that. There's so much negative stuff going on that Dermot Shea and the man, all these people need to know that regular old folk like myself, who may not be that highly computer literate and all this kind of thing here, regular old people want you to know that we are still in contact with our precincts, our police officers. They care about us, we care about them, and we have a relationship going. That's very important information in this era of dysfunction. And basically, that's all I want to say. I think you said you was going to put. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Glover. I just want to say one more thing. I'm sorry. In addition to your community affairs officers, there are neighborhood coordinating officers. A lot of the information that you're mentioning, like who's doing verticals, whether they're doing them, when they're doing them. Is there someone on the loose inside Washington houses? Officer Sanchez and Mercado, Lloyd Mercado and Alex Sanchez are your coordinating officers. If you don't know them, I would develop a relationship with them. If I lived in East Harlem, I live in Queens. I know my neighborhood coordinating officers and I've reached out to them already. I would set up a relationship with them, email them, ask them to stop by when they're in the area. They should be in the area regularly, and ask them specific questions like that the community affairs officers might not even know, but it's their job to know it. So their emails are available online, just so everyone knows. And Ms. Glover, if you call me, I'll give you their email addresses.
Okay, thank you. You called it neighborhood, what is it? Neighborhood who officers?
Neighborhood coordination officers. There's two officers assigned just to Washington and actually at the Lexington houses. That's their sole beat. That's their entire beat. They're responsible for everything that the NYPD does in there, and their job is to coordinate our effort in response to crime and quality of life issues inside Washington houses.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the information, Officer Gibbons. Okay, Carly, I believe we're done with this particular update. And everyone's favorite subject, the budget. Last year we did a great job, and a lot of that had to do with us starting early. So we are going to start as early as February, just bringing it up so that everyone can have it fresh in their minds.
Jose, if I may, we're bringing it up. So we received our preliminary budget, the mayor's preliminary budget, which are the preliminary responses to that which we submitted in October. So all that work we did in October, it starts back up again now. And the community board is tasked with drafting a statement on the preliminary budget. So each committee is going to look at the responses to their budget requests, whether they were funded, whether or not funded, whether they were recommended for funding or not recommended. And it's important to consider the following. I put some bullet points here. So for the statement, the board is asked to comment on projects which were or were not included in the agency's estimates. Committees are asked to further justify those project requests that were not recommended for funding. And also you could detail how funding recommendations relate to our statement of district needs. I had sent over the budget register last week, specifically relating to the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. And Angel had sent over a couple weeks prior to that, the full budget register and also all of the links to the preliminary budget. I'm going to share my screen. Well, I'm sharing it already, but I'm going to share the budget register now for everyone's review. And then I am going to open that up to you, Jose, to lead the discussion and for all of you to participate. And I will be taking notes, and I will I'll send notes over to the budget committee, and the budget committee, along with the staff, will be drafting the statement on the preliminary budget.
We're not seeing the screen. Here we go. All right, so let's do these one at a time. We're not going to read it out because everyone can see them, right? So for the first one, their response was, for information regarding the status of the request, contact the transit authority directly. And they gave us a phone number. Okay, so then we'll have to call that phone number to see where they're at. That
Yeah,
was
so
phase 2. Go ahead, Carly.
all of the requests to New York City Transit were, the response was that number. I have not been able to reach them, but I will be trying again, and we'll let you all know how that goes.
Okay, so the first one was second phase. The second one was accessibility. They also gave us the same response. The third one is DOT street lighting, which is something that we have been asking for, and we have received in some parts, but we're still missing on others. The answer is the agency will try to accommodate this issue within existing resources. Further study. We narrowed down the areas where we asked, so we're going to follow up in regards to making sure that they have existing resources for this. The next one is the Fire Safety Education Unit. Is everyone following along? We're on number 6. All right, the agency agrees with the request, but the funding decision allows a different budget process. Okay, so they're going through a budget process. Do you want to keep it moving forward, Carly? If anyone has any questions on any of these, please bring them up as we go through them one at a time. The next one is the expansion of the MAP project that we're having currently. This capital project is included. Okay, so it's already included. Yeah,
So I had highlighted this because this is an expense request and they're saying that it's a capital project. Like, I think that there's need for clarification here because it's, I don't, so capital, if for those who don't know, capital budget is for, you know, larger items that are like over, I forget the exact amount, but I think it's like $35,000 or $50,000. I think it's $35,000, and it's like the infrastructure projects you see. Think like, so everything below this line is expense, which is like programs and personnel. So this is an unclear. I checked and double checked, and this is what they put for that, and it's not accurate.
Carly, is there would there be a sort of a budget line item or a sort of reference number that that they would be referring us to? The agency lump sum just means that it's funded by MOPJ and it's taken care of. Is that right?
Yes, but I think that, so it's not a capital, I mean, it's not, I looked in the capital budget, within the preliminary documents that were sent over. And there's no, in the number that they send back to us or the document they sent to us, they don't include a line item and they don't include what they're referencing. So I personally wasn't able to find it, and I'm still confused because this is an expense request that would come through, like this would be within the expense, this would be from the expense budget. And to me, this just looks like a mistake. Because if you look over to the next box, the adjacent one, it says the agency agrees with this, but funding cannot be determined at this time. So I think that this was a mistake.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't be an expense request to begin with.
No, it is, because the MAP program it's a program. It's not like a.
So our request here was currently the MAP program is in only one development in our community. And our request here is to have them in all NYCHA developments in East Harlem. So right now, only I believe they're in Wagner.
Yes.
So this map safety, neighborhood safety program is only currently held in Wagner. And it's like a pilot program they did in a few NYCHA developments throughout the city. I think there's one in Brooklyn, one in Queens. We got Wagner. So our request here is to have them in all NYCHA developments. We could always go to see, we can reach out to see if this was a mistake or if it was a mistake, but Marissa, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I actually, for EchoDev, had a meeting with the public library today, who they gave a response for an ask of ours that was very unclear. And so I was gonna say, you just mentioned having a conversation with who gave the response. So whoever is in terms of like running the MAP program, but I think having a conversation can give you more clarity, because I know there's only but so much that they can add in regards to their response. And the response that I got from the public library was nowhere near the response that they gave in this bucket. It was so far off, and in a good way though. So I encourage you, if you can, before the 10th, which I think is the deadline, to see if you can have a conversation, which can give you more clarity as to, you know, some of the responses on here.
So Marissa, just to clarify, you're suggesting there be a conversation with MACHE regarding the map and their funding?
Yeah, if possible, because there may be additional information that's unable to be provided on this response that you can get from a conversation that there's no, you know, space allowed in here to actually expand upon.
Yeah, so we would reach out to Moksha to see if this was a mistake, this response, or if it was a funding issue at the time, because one of, the next line says agrees with this request, but funding cannot be determined at this time. So I think it's just a matter of reaching out to them and seeing what they clarify from there. So let's move on. Next one is expand bus service frequency or hours of operation. Our response is the agency recommends funding this expense budget request 22, but at this time, the availability of funds is uncertain. I know that we were supposed to have a Manhattan rezoning of buses last year, but then with COVID, I believe it's been delayed. We can, Carly, maybe reach out to see where that is with the NYCT or DOT. I'm not sure which one is in charge of the MTA, but they were supposed to, what they did in the Bronx the year before, which is basically make changes in the bus lanes. What they did was they cut certain lines, and they, instead of having one long line, they changed it. We've been pushing for a bus line that goes from 59th up to our area. Basically, because of traffic involving downtown, we've noticed that there is and this happened even before I was chair, we've been requesting this, where a lot of buses get stuck in traffic past 59th Street. So we're requesting some service that basically comes from our neighborhood to 59th Street and just back and forth. But of course, everything that their response is in lack of funding. So we're gonna look into to see what happened with that Manhattan rezone. We were supposed to take a part of it, but it hasn't happened as of yet, to my knowledge. Anyone else?
I do just want to say, if it's helpful for the committee, so something like what you just said, you explained why it's important to why we have this request on there and why it's important. You mentioned the traffic. It's like something like that. That's something I can include in the statement on the preliminary budget, because it's not so the idea of this exercise is that the budget is not solidified yet. So we are further advocating for those that they don't recommend funding for. So in that instance, for this request, I would expand. I would say everything. I would write up everything that Jose just said and use that as further justification for funding. I just wanted to say that to help guide the conversation. So if you see one of these requests, in addition to any follow-up actions I or Jose or anyone else on the committee needs to take, if you have anything further you want to say about the need for these requests, that is definitely welcome.
I'm sorry, Carly, are you, is this our shared spreadsheet? Is that an active document? Are you indicating follow-up steps that you're going to take on there somewhere, or should we be jotting them down on our own? Are there timelines for our response here that we should be aware of as we do this work together right now?
So for the preliminary budget, we are required to submit a statement on the preliminary budget by the 15th. The district needs and budget committee meets on the 11th, and they're going to approve the final product. And that is why the full board meeting was moved up, so that we can vote on the statement in time. So yes, the follow-up item, like as mandated by the charter, is that we submit a statement, and that is kind of, that's what I'm gathering now. I'm gathering what everyone's saying. The follow-up items itself, so this is in your drive, and I guess it is an active drive. I'm taking down notes right now because it's, just easier for me as I manage the presentation. But there are actions aside from the statement on the preliminary budget that we do need to take. An ideal, like the sooner the better, following up with the NYCT, the transit, and about those requests that they need following up on, getting a clarification for the MOCJ request response. Ideally that would all be done by the time we submit the statement.
So then here's my question, Carly. Do we emphasize on the ones that most matter to us? For instance, street lighting is something that I think is very important for public safety and makes a drastic change in neighborhoods. Obviously the MAP program, there are some things like the Second Avenue subway, which we know depends on federal funding and it's just outside of just the city. So should it be our focus to push forward a few, or?
I hear your question, and I really think that's up to you as the committee to decide. That's really up to you. I think that's a strategy you can take. You're right that the NYC, like the Second Avenue subway, like that might be something like it's already planned for. It's just, we're waiting for it to actually happen. Maybe that one feels more out of our control, but the statement certainly, it provides an opportunity for you to further illustrate what's important to you and what you want funded and why you want that funded. So as you speak about it now, I hear what you're saying with the follow-up items. I'm writing those down too, but for the statement, I'm personally jotting down the stuff that's further expands upon why that request is important.
So just to clarify, Carly, you're going to do a round of follow-up, but at the same time, we need to be producing a statement in response to this preliminary budget that supports our statement of district needs statement and advocates for line items that really matter.
Yes.
Okay. All in the next week?
Yes, a couple weeks, yeah.
Okay.
So on that subject, now we know that we're on a timetable. Let's kind of push through some of these. We're almost done. We could always go back to them. Improve subway maintenance.
Jose, Can we, I know, I'm not sure if we got past conduct traffic or parking studies, the one that ends in 106E. I recently met with a board member, Giselle Malave, up on 116th and 1st, a corner where there have been some fatal traffic accidents recently. And I think, you know, our work, and maybe this is a testament to how we can improve our efforts for next year, because I think we're always under a response crunch, but to suggest that this expense line item might actually be really important. And the fact that the agency will accommodate this issue with existing resources, that's great, but I think we need to make sure that that accommodation is robust and on par with the level of response that is necessary for some of the incidents that have happened in East Harlem. So I would suggest that this is a great expense line item to reference and make a very real statement on, even though they've said, okay, yeah, we'll cover that. I think we want to make sure they do.
You should know that 116 and First has had every new safety installation that the city's currently providing. They have bike lane, they have extended bulbs for crosswalks. You know, the accident that happened there was negligence on the part of the driver, from my latest understanding. And then we had one on 117th a few years back. So just, you know, to bring that up, like the city has, like, that's not a good example because they've put all these safety, but obviously we can, I think all of this is going to be resubmitted, so we can always focus on this, because I think there are a lot of different places where there's definitely needs some help. But I know that particular place, like Second Avenue as well, I think we need to focus on areas that don't have all those safety improvements already installed.
Particularly, there was a school and a residential building with elderly folks, and a stretch of 116th from First to the river that is essentially an opportunity to drive really fast. It's a wide road and there's not much reason to slow down. I think these types of situations exist in places throughout the district, and while DOT makes an immediate safety response through, you know, cones or the sort of rounding out the corners, First Avenue is a fast street. 116th at that far east is a fast street, and the faster cars go, unless there is enforcement, the more risk of people being harmed traveling as pedestrians. So, you know, we ask for traffic or parking studies, and I think we can do a better job in targeting some of the neighborhood areas that people have identified as being safety concerns to take action on going forward. And I know DOT has all these stats, of course, and they should be responding, absolutely. But often it takes
I'm going to cut you off because
targeted action.
If the school, that school is at the very end by Pleasant, is that the one you're talking about? But we have ways of mitigating speed. Speed bumps is something that DOT has been very open with us in installing. Basically, the procedure is pretty straightforward, particularly if it comes from us. So if that school particularly has a feel that they've had incidents with speeding, we can definitely look to ask for DOT to install something like that in that area, which we've had installed in other schools. But again, like, we can focus on it, but I think we were very detailed in our request. And I think what Carly needs is, I don't know if she needs more detail on this, because we were very detailed. traffic parking.
Jose, I think that would be great to take up that specific instance at a later date. What I'm suggesting is, I think what Carly is asking for,
Details, like something to help our actual, like,
well, no, just calling out that, hey, this is something that really does also matter, even though it has been accommodated. Am I wrong, Carly? Or are we supposed to only be responding to items that have not been funded?
No, no, you're not wrong. In addition, so generally what we do is we thank agencies for the requests that they funded, and if there is need for clarification or if something has happened, like since we sent over our requests, we'll include that if there's additional information needed. And then for those that weren't funded, we further explain, like we kind of push for it to be funded and explain why. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
So in this particular case, where they're saying they will accommodate it within existing resource, right? So they're not saying no. What should our response be to their maybe? Because that's really what they're giving us, right? A maybe.
Something like, thank you, like we appreciate your willingness. I don't know. Thank you for your support on this. We want to further explain why this is important, since, something.
I mean, Carly, I guess it's an agency level conversation then. Is that right? With DOT to allocate some of their existing resources to these specific needs. That's how this would get done in some ways.
Yeah, and I think another thing, yes, and I think that kind of brings me to another point, which is, they don't provide any details. Like, how do we know that they're actually going to accommodate this issue, and what resources are they allocating, and what's the timeline of that? So this document can also serve that function of being like, okay, great, but can you tell us more in better phrasing, of course.
Where engaging DOT has not been something that has been so successful here in our Zoom world, that really trying to, use this, it's an expense line item. That's not a big ticket item, but it's about showing up and engaging with us to solve problems. And I think if we're lacking that, then there's a disservice in the process. So this may be a good line item to harp on a bit in calling out what are those agency actions that need to happen in order to support this accommodation within whatever existing resources.
Yeah. And then, really quick, I think it's important to also note that this request asks them to conduct a traffic or a parking study, and their expanded response is this request requires further study. So they're saying that our request for them to conduct a study requires further study. They've done this before. This is actually, this is not the first time you've submitted this request. This was submitted the year before, and then the year before that. And I'm not sure about prior to that, because I came on.
Yeah, so what do they need to know? Can we help them?
Yeah. Yeah, so
I'm not being snarky to you. I'm just kind of like trying to, how do we phrase that, or what is the proper response in order to, instead of having it be a study needing further study, how do we start to get some progress in further identifying what the specific problem is so that they can conduct a study to solve the problem, right?
Yeah. So we have some participants raised hand. I think that's a good question. And I think it speaks to the committee's goal that you had discussed at a prior meeting about increasing accountability with DOT, or accountability from DOT. We do have hands raised. So I just do, so we have Michelle, and then we have Dawn.
Sorry, it just took me a little time to unmute myself. I was wondering if there is a way to have a letter with a timeline in it, asking for, instead of having the whole circular fashion of this request requires further study, saying, well, we understand it requires further study at this moment, but can you give us a timeline on when we can get the street lamp? When can we get the speed bump? When can we get, and like have a list of certain things all to one agency, and then have another list and a letter of things to another agency with a timeline? Is that a possibility?
I'm just going to answer this real quick, Jose. So this exercise that we're doing right now is mandated. So there's nothing preventing the committee from voting on a letter to DOT about that. However,
It wouldn't do anything with this particular. Would that letter affect the budget request immediately, Carly?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Would the letter have any references to the budget request, or would it be?
Wait, let me just.
Michelle's saying it's for a letter, right? Which is
I'm saying to add on to the, yes, to continue with the budget request, but to have as an adjunct to this budget request, a specific letter as a follow-up to make sure that they cannot just give this little, the request requires further study.
So that's possible. You can certainly do that. I will include that request though in the statement on the preliminary budget. And also, so if you're not familiar with the budget cycle, I don't think we should take up the time in this meeting to talk about the budget cycle, but I think that there's room for further explanation, about how the community board works with the city agencies on these requests. I mean, we meet with them beyond the preliminary budget. We meet with them ahead of our budget request and well in advance of, like, right after the executive budget is passed. We did have a meeting with DOT where we asked them like these exact questions, and you can write a letter, but it's more so, like I mentioned before, speaking to the committee's goal about holding DOT more accountable. I hope that answers your question.
Sort of.
I should add that there's no, so we're not revising any requests right now. In our budget request, there is the opportunity for us to attach on letters of support from electeds, there's opportunities for advocacy and letters to be attached to our budget request, but that passed. That was in October. You can follow up, but just for the purpose of this exercise right now and the deadline that we're on, I think that we should focus on the task at hand.
I just wanted that to be added and put into the minutes so that we will do this.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next line because I'm not sure how many more we have.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Dawn also had her hand raised.
Dawn?
Thank you. So one of the things I just wanted to do is respond to what Jessica was saying, and it's refreshing that Jessica is so forthcoming in making sure that things don't slip between the cracks. I think that's really important. And I just wanted to say that I think a big part of our strategy, if we're really going to get serious with the DOT, is to work with the borough president's office, the person who's assigned the transportation for the borough president's office, and start trying to look at what other community boards have successfully done. Some communities have the resources to sue DOT when they are being dismissive, which they often are. We don't have those resources, but we could definitely look at how other community boards have gotten the respect and the attention that they deserve from the DOT and other agencies. And I think the borough president's office would be able to help us in that regard.
Can I just offer a quick response? And this is outside the statement of district needs conversation, but Don, I would agree the borough president has expressed interest in our commenting on public realm conversation, and that would be a great way to open that dialogue, which I'm sure, having had a preliminary conversation about some things with Matthew Washington and the deputy borough president and Paul Goebel, I believe is the transportation analyst with the borough president. They are Isabel Abreu as well, always looking for ways to be supportive. So if this is something we need some support on, I think we can be proactive towards the next budget cycle so that we don't find ourselves in this kind of conundrum of cyclicality for another year. Recognizing this is a repeating problem means we have to take a different tack on how to start to request things so they can be funded and supported and advanced and solved.
All right, let's move on to the next. So small. Next one is improve subway station or train cleanliness, safety, and maintenance. And we're getting the same response to call a particular telephone number. I think it's very troubling that the Transit Authority isn't even taking the time to give us a proper feedback, and they're just basically telling us to call a number.
They are in total crisis right now, Jose. Total crisis.
Okay, well, it's very, very troubling to see. The next one is expanding funding for fire prevention and life safety initiatives. I believe this was granted last year, and approval of this request is contingent upon receive private funding and are budgeted through elected officials funding. So they have what seems to be a conditional approval, and it depends on private funding and elected official funding. The funding decision allows difference. They typically get this funding. They've gotten it the last few years, I believe. So if you want to move on, we have a secondary similar to the one we had before, which was conduct a traffic or parking study. And we're getting a further study of our study. This one was to establish a parking permit program in East Harlem, something that supposedly started in Washington Heights under Idanis Rodriguez. He is the chair of transportation, and I believe he started a pilot program. And I actually reached out to his office to get a response, but it seems that they're also in crisis. This is his last term, and he won't be, he's not allowed to run again. So I'm not sure if maybe he's not focusing on the past, but I'm going to reach out again to him to see what information we can get and how the pilot program, if it even happened, I'm not even sure. What else do we have, Carly?
Jose, can I just make an observation? While we have some cyclical responses and that is not so great, I do have to remark at how aligned our committee goals for 2021 are with our budget requests. So that's good. So we can kind of keep doing what we're doing and try to make some progress towards advancing the goals.
Definitely a good direction.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was our last one. Oh, see, Carly's really tricky because her Excel sheet looked like we had a million more. You know, I'm looking at where she has her scroll bar, and I thought we had like 50 more items to go, and that was the last one. Let's start from the very top again. If anyone, I really would like to put some emphasis on the street lighting. Where we have gotten street lighting, I believe it's made a big difference about public safety in our community. There's also the upgrade from the regular bulbs that they currently have to the LEDs, something that we got along Marcus Garvey and a few other places. And in terms of actual lighting, it makes a huge difference as to like the clarity and everything else. So
Jose, I believe in DOT's street design manual, you can actually be specific about what kind of light post we're suggesting. They have different kinds, different models, and the one that has the lower light for areas with tree canopy, I'm going to look right now and see if I can find the thing that we're talking about, because if we're talking about a specific thing, we can say, here, we want these in this place. And, you know, I don't know if being more specific is
What
helpful.
we're asking is actually we need, the lights are actually down, or one was removed. So we're asking 104, 105, and 117th. On 117th, it was actually removed. We'd never got an explanation why. We also haven't had a DOT liaison with us for some months, which is something that I'm gonna reach out to the borough president and complain. I still believe I have the phone number to the DOT commissioner when he came once. So we're gonna reach out as well, because I think that we understand an absence here and there, but we haven't seen anyone from DOT in months. And considering they're not traveling and they can do these, it's easier than ever. I mean, typically this meeting would have been canceled due to a snow day, right? But it's not, because no one has to travel. We're all doing it from home. So I think it's very, to the point it's almost disrespectful, because DOT should definitely be here. You know, most of that is the biggest complaint that we have, and everything to do with DOT. So we're going to have to reach out directly. I haven't looked at the chat in a while, but let's see, speed bump, yes.
Can I just add on to that?
Here, go ahead.
That I was reading that the former DOT commissioner is on a short list to be considered for to be in Biden's administration. And
She's been appointed.
So that's kind of sad, you know, to me, because I just wonder, I wonder about that. But okay, thanks for letting me know. So the new person, I don't know if the new person is a little different, but like she was so successful just ignoring us. Like why would a new commissioner like Liz take?
Don, you cut out, but I might add, I know recently, and this is maybe more appropriate for announcements, but
we still have a lot to do, so I will just, everyone keep that in mind.
I'll save it for announcements, Don. I've got a rebuttal.
Okay. All right, so do we have any other comments on this particular preliminary budget request trackers that we've gone through line by line? No. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Carly. We have two old business. One we need to get done tonight, and the other one is a continuation conversation. The one we need to get done tonight is a written testimony for DSNY Commercial Waste Carting Zone proposed rules. We spoke about this last month. We have until, I believe, the 9th to give a written testimony. After going to executive board, executive board said we could bring it back to committee and we can actually present it as something from the committee, that was perfectly fine to DSNY. So that's why we wanted to hash it out. We had 3 main points in regards to this situation, but we need actual language. We need to be able to, let's see over here. It's open. Where are you? Where'd you go? Price.
Personally, Jose, I think we had a robust discussion, and the points that we brought up, while they are important, you know, so you're looking for language right now to advance
today. We're not, we can discuss it, but we are looking to language tonight. Not we're gonna work on it later. We're gonna have language tonight so that we can submit it by the 9th. So this is our main 3 points. We can add more points if you guys choose, or we can elaborate to these 3 points. The first one was pricing. Currently, what the city has put in place, the SNY, is that they are allowing these companies that will win the bid a maximum price. However, a maximum price, and they cannot exceed that maximum price. But let's say a restaurant that has extensive garbage would hit that maximum price, but an office who has minimal garbage, there's no guaranteeing where that office would be. And they said you could negotiate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that particular company will negotiate, right? It's optional for them. I believe that the pricing is a big issue because we have a lot of small businesses that have to have this carding license viewed on their door. And the city is always checking to make sure that you have this carding license on your door. So I believe that we should have a tiered pricing where if someone has very minimal garbage, then they should be, be able to have that kind of instead of someone that has more. So we can put something like the SNY should implement a tiered pricing system, an emphasis to businesses that have less garbage or minimal garbage, whatever language we want to put.
Jose or Carly, whoever's controlling the screen, is it possible to zoom in so that we can see the language a little bit closer? Yeah, even one more zoom would be, not that we're already zooming because we are all zooming, but oh, that's good. Now I can read it. Maybe even one more would be helpful, but
it's time to check those glasses.
It's been a long day, Jose.
I needed it bigger too.
Don is happy too. I think we should emphasize on businesses that have less garbage, right? Obviously, they're already taking into consideration a business that has a lot of garbage. That's why they're putting a maximum. But there are a lot of businesses in our neighborhood that have very minimal commercial waste. And
Jose, didn't you also say in the last meeting that you thought that people being locked into a contract for 10 years was too much, or there needs to be more review?
I thought 10 years was a long time. They're saying, DSNY was saying that 10 years was the basis because they're asking for a lot of investment, but I didn't see any of what their investment was. They're not asking for electric trucks right now. They're not asking them to upgrade the trucks right now. We can definitely add that to the list because I honestly think that 10 years is a long time to have a contract.
Should be 5 years.
5 years is I would believe is more appropriate. We can add that to number 4. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. Nice. Boom. Now the second one was MWE participation and pipeline into the commercial waste industry.
I'm sorry. I want to get in what you had said about the contract length.
You want to do it point by point and then we'll get to 4?
Oh, okay.
So for MWE participation in terms of language, I think they said they had 1 MWBE participant from I think something like 80, 90 carding companies. We know that due to Scott Stringer's grading system that the city is definitely failing with NWBEs. So if anyone can help me with language here for MWBE, I'd appreciate it.
It would have to be it's a non-mandate because it's encouraging MWBE pipelines in contracting and subcontracting.
So it is our committee's view that that the DSNY should what's the word? Help me, Jessica. Should continue pushing forward MWE participation. Encourage. Yes, I like that, Diane. Oh, you're awake.
I've been here all the time.
I know you're watching TV. Stop it.
No, I'm not. And I'm sitting here listening.
Diana,
Encourage MWE participation in this is an RFP in this bidding process, whatever it is.
the,
What does this show you? A competitive in this procurement. They label it as a competitive procurement.
What?
That's how the DSNY put it in their language. They put it as a competitive procurement.
Right. So we encourage MWBE participation in this new competitive procurement. It's practically new or revised or whatever term you want to call it.
Procurement, competitive procurement. That's what they put. Procurement.
Right.
Process. We also encourage DSNY to create pipelines for MWBEs into this commercial waste industry, seeing the lack of MWBEs or the lack of minority participation in this particular sector.
to support the development of or to encourage the development of, yeah.
That sounds nice.
Pipeline development.
To support, yeah, MWBE pipeline development, right?
Right.
Very nice.
Question, Jose. Why do we, the first sentence, participation in this revised competitive procurement process, why revised?
I don't know why we should remove revised because this is a new competitive procurement. This hasn't been revised yet. This is the first time it's going up.
I know, that's why I was asking. Thank you.
It's a good question. That's why we removed it. Thank you, Carly. Anything else for MWBE?
Instead of view, maybe a position.
Okay.
Is this not a new competitive procurement process? They never did this before.
It is a new, but we had revised, and revised means that it's not new.
Okay, well then new. Well, it's an existing process, but we've never been able to compete in it.
No, this law just got it. City Council last year. DSNY is basically creating it now, which is why I'm having a public hearing. So I think we're fine like this.
It's a new competitive procurement opportunity. The process isn't changing, but the opportunity is, right?
I think it's okay the way it is.
Yep, okay.
Okay. Now we have subcontracting. The issue we have with subcontracting is that we were concerned that larger companies with better resources would win the procurement of this contract, and then they would subcontract to smaller companies, which is allowed by their rules, and they would take advantage of the subcontractors, which happens quite often in business. So we wanted certain protections for subcontractors. So, if you guys could help with the language, because as you know, English is my second language. So Dawn, go ahead and I'm basically giving you the layout, but
I would think that DSNY subcontractors would have a certain percentage.
Well, percentage. Well, they wouldn't have a percentage. They would be some contractors. So what they would do, what we want to give them is protection. And that way we can also protect our own neighborhood, right? If they're, getting this contract for a certain amount of money and paying half to a subcontractor, we won't get the kind of service that we should get. So yeah, guarantee protection for subcontractors with
Through periodic performance review or
or maybe forcing the whoever went to procurement to also put their, whatever agreements they have with their subcontractors, right? That would give us a lot of transparency for DSNY.
Mm.
I think they're already gonna, I think periodic performance review is part of their, it was part of their proposal already, but request that any subcontracting done by the winner of the procurement would be revised by DSNY or monitored by DSNY.
All right, so what's the language here? So DSNY should guarantee protection for subcontractors.
For subcontractors by requiring any subcontractor contracts to be submitted as part of the periodic performance reviews.
By requiring.
So Jose, just to clarify, the concern is in the contracting that a subcontractor would kind of get less of a legitimate contract because of predatory subcontracting practices. Is that what we're worried about?
Correct. We're worried about that company A wins a procurement and then they use a predatory subcontracting, which happens a lot in business. And at that point, we would kind of fall into the same kind of procedure we have now because it would be stuck for 2 years.
We know that generally if they hire subcontractors, they pay them below minimum wage.
Correct.
And they don't have protection. They don't have any liability protection if they get hurt. Is that what we're trying to say here?
Yes. But we need the language. Give Carly the language.
I also put something in the chat.
I barely look at the chat. Thank you, Ms. Glover, for your compensation practices. I like that, see?
That's better.
I like that.
Because, you can't guarantee it.
Yeah,
but it should be tracked and monitored.
So let's see, what would it say? All right, so but DSNY would guarantee fair compensation guarantees and labor practices and all. Because
you could say guarantee fair compensation practices, fair compensation and labor practices.
There we go. Thanks, Dawn. And the last one was contract length. Currently, it's 10 years. Our suggestion would be that DSNY consider a 5-year, considering that they're not asking for any huge capital requirements currently. They're not asking them to go green vehicles or anything that would drastically change their current business model, which, I would understand if you're asking them to switch to hybrid. Those trucks, I asked someone, I think they said it was like $250 starting, garbage, a carting truck, more or less. And anything green, I think, I'm not even sure if it exists, but I know that DSNY brought that up.
Jose, do you know the return on investment for those trucks?
Depends, they have, I think he said there's about 90 carting companies. And in the zones that are established, I mean, my question to him and how many of these carting businesses will no longer exist still stands. I think we're going to see at least a third of those carting companies ceasing to exist after this is implemented.
No, I'm just thinking from a perspective of they invest in a truck, you know, whatever of the new green
I have no
trucks or
idea
whatever.
what I'm not in that
It's
business.
5 years. It's
I have
5
no
years.
idea how it returns or what
Yeah.
they must do something with the garbage to sell it to someone else, because there's got to be a way to make money off of garbage. I
I
imagine.
mean, so I was just going to suggest that, you know, decrease the contract to firm 5 years with a 5-year renewal.
That's exactly, Diane. I think, you know, there needs to be a long enough commitment for there to be a sure bet in making the investment from a business perspective. But the option to, if they, you know, and I think this is in the rules, is that if they, as a contractor, are not performing, can be dismissed, or the contract.
Right.
And it would be less messy if there were an option to do that after 5 years than having to
Right.
do it.
Right.
So that would be in the language to 5 years with a 5-year renewal based on the performance tracking during the initial 5 years. And I think DSNY should have a tie-in with the community, whether it's a community board or something in their rules that kind of include community board. Is that wrong? Is that feeling?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if there is a, you know, a 311 category of, like, you know, delinquent trash trucks, or, you know, some sort of measure of kind of reporting from a community perspective on this. I don't know that there formally is. And what you're suggesting is that there should be some sort of opportunity for the evaluation of the community to be considered in the overall evaluation of the you know, contract performance.
Jose,
You
Why
forgot,
not?
you forgot from 10 years to 5 years with the option for renewal.
I have a question, Jose.
Yes.
Given the fact that there were 12 or so odd zones, and those zones are going to include several community boards,
Correct.
given the last ask, what would that look like?
The zones themselves?
No, okay, if the community board would have a say or
So
conversation.
then more than one community board, whatever community board was encompassed in a zone would have a say.
Right.
I mean,
So
I think it's
each
something
one.
we do with we do this with restaurants, right? When a restaurant's liquor license is up for renewal, we have liquor licenses for that. It happens with TLC. For instance, I have car service, and when my renewal comes up, it goes through the community board. I think it's important to add that to this piece in DS, because this affects the community very heavily. And I think DSNY should have some kind of established, not they're going to thank us and ask us, but something in their rules should have where the community board and say that this particular vendor has been doing a great job, or if they don't agree with it because of the following reasons, blah, blah, blah.
Community report card.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the premises. I was just asking, since the zones will probably overlap community boards, and there will be multiple carters operating in those zones, how would it look? So would it be?
There would only be up to 3 carters in each zone. So let's say our zone is with the Upper East Side. So when the time for renewal comes, they would come to the DSNY would ask us basically for a report card over the last 5 or 10 years and say, hey, how were these people during the last 5 or 10 years? What complaints did you get? What this? And we can submit whatever information we have. And the Upper East Side Community Board would do the same thing. But I think it should be added to how their process is currently functioning.
Okay, again, I agree with the involvement of the community board. I'm just curious to know what it would look like with multiple community boards giving a report card on a carter. Thank you.
I think, Yolanda, if I'm not mistaken, the jurisdictions of the zones do follow jurisdictions of community boards, but sometimes they're grouped together. So like 8 and 5 is a complete, I'm sorry, 8 and 11 is a complete waste zone. So it would just be kind of a joint report card or a kind of cumulative
report card from 2 community boards, as opposed to if the waste zone cut across the middle of 8 and kind of they had to respond to 2 sides. I think they overlapped and stuck by community district jurisdictions in grouping their waste zones.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So Carly, how about we add a sentence after performance saying that at the renewal, or we could do it separately where it was our position as a committee that at the renewal process, DSNY would reach out to the community board to see how that particular vendor was operating within the sector of.
In the 5 years.
Yeah, that's why it's part of the 5 years, right? So we're doing 5 years with the option for renewal.
Is it, I know a little bit about the permit renewal process, but that our licenses and permits committee tend to really only respond with resistance when there are kind of negative, reports. And
Right.
would we wouldn't be
We usually get that from the precinct. So when there's something negative with a restaurant, what they basically do is that they have that complaint, and if they have numerous complaints, then when they come back for renewal, we let them know that the complaints exist.
Yeah, so I don't think we would be looking for glowing remarks for waste hauling, but we would be looking for kind of if there were any.
Most of the time it's a pass or fail kind of situation, right? For most of those licenses, they basically say everything is fine, go ahead. But there've been a few situations where just, multiple fights and then they purposely go out of their way to give a bad review.
Jose, I think we should also ask them to report to the community board at least once a year, especially in the beginning.
DSNY?
Yes.
All right, so let's do that, Carly, as a separate one, as like a next. Let's not put too much together.
Especially in the beginning, it's just, and annually. I'm being nice by saying annually. I would say every 6 months, because it's so new. You want to be able to provide feedback.
If there are issues.
I agree, Diane. I think this is predicated on being good for safety, being good for air quality, being good for the community in a lot of ways. But how good is good if we don't hear about it? I think we need to hear about it. You're absolutely right.
Yearly, shipper annual, yes. Updates regarding program progress.
Right, let me know, but
Carly, you're doing great.
if I think of better wording, which I likely will after the fact when I'm all refreshed and renewed, I'm going to send like the draft testimony before it's submitted to all of you for review.
Beautiful. Okay, so it looks like we're done with this.
Okay.
And now we have our committee discussion about electric vehicles, bike, scooters regulation. We couldn't speak about this last month because of the time constraint, but this is something that I in particular have brought up continuously to this committee. And I think after seeing the fatalities and accidents that have happened in our particular community, I think the rest of you are on board with having some kind of regulation.
And by regulation, I don't necessarily mean fines. I think what I'm looking for initially, particularly for anything going past 15, 20 miles an hour, which is most of these vehicles, is having the state or the city require insurance on them. I think I've had mopeds that do 20 miles an hour, and the city does not require you to have a motorcycle license for it. You can drive it with a regular license, but you do have to have a plate and you do have to have insurance on it. And the insurance protects the pedestrian as much as the user of the vehicle. I really want to push something for next month so we can have some language from this month to next month, because I would like to see something come out of this committee in regards to this particular conversation.
May I make a suggestion? I think, and this is kind of technical, but there are 3 classes of e-bikes. One being pedal assist that maxes out at 20 miles per hour. Class 2 being throttle power bikes that max out at 20 miles per hour. And class 3 throttle power bikes that max out at 25 miles per hour. And then there are e-scooters that are capped at 15 miles an hour that are legal statewide. I would suggest that pedal assist bikes maxing out at 20 miles an hour are not necessarily the issue, but that throttle powered bikes are where there is a real potential for speed and danger. Pedal assist is still.
I mean, I kind of disagree with you, because at 20 miles an hour, if you get hit by something going 20 miles, I mean, the speed limit for cars in New York City is 25. So if you get hit by something going 20, it can still cause a substantial amount of damage to you, particularly if it's a bicycle or the weight involved.
These bikes are legal in New York City already.
No, I know.
Okay.
There's actually, those are legal, but the other ones have no real, they're not really being regulated.
The throttle powered bikes are not being regulated. I'm suggesting that that's maybe where the sort of insurance and kind of ownership requirements would be a really great idea. The pedal assist bikes are often used by bike share companies, even like City Bike and Jump bikes. It's a little bit, it's a different class of bike. So I would just, suggest, if we're looking to make sure that we're mitigating harm and sort of offering protections, I think the throttle powered bikes are perhaps one of the biggest issues.
And it's not just bikes. They have skateboards. They have unicycle. I'm sure most of you have seen these. Yeah, there's one of my neighbors has the unicycle one that he carries on his backpack, and he's just
pretty cool. I say we live in a world we can get around.
I like everything that goes fast. I just think that everything that goes fast should have a certain level of insurance for the protection of this neighborhood, for the protection of anyone in this city. So we can put a speed to it, since the other one's already regulated. Anything over 20 miles an hour should carry insurance, and make some language based on that so that we can send it to the state, city, we can send it to DOT, whoever it needs to be sent to, because we've had numerous incidents. And, unfortunately, last year we even had a fatality on 119th and Pleasant. And I'm not sure what the outcome of that fatality was. Because like we were saying, like I was saying about insurance before, right? Insurance isn't just for the person getting hit. Now that person leaves himself for a lot of liability. I mean, he can be sued personally for anything and everything he owns. And he, at the time of him buying that particular device, there was no requirement for insurance.
I just want to make a note. I'm sorry, let me raise my hand.
No, go ahead, Marissa.
I just wanted to make a note. I'm not sure how we move around this, or what this looks like, but I do think that we need insurance or some type of regulation around it, and just also being mindful of the fact that a lot of the individuals that use these scooters, actually, I don't want to generalize. I don't want to say that that's the case, but just keeping in mind that there may be individuals that now, including the insurance portion, puts them in, possibly will put them in a financial situation, and not to disregard what impact the actual scooter can have on a person in their life, which is also to be, considered and discussed. But just thinking in regards to like equity and how this plays a role in, some of our delivery folks and what the repercussions are in in enforcing insurance and another payment. So just, just thinking about that, overall,
I think Jessica brought that up in earlier conversations as well. But if we compare it to something like I was saying, I have a few motorcycles, and my smallest scooter, which is a 50cc, does about 25, 30 miles an hour. Well, it goes a little faster now, some modifications. But insurance on something like that is about, I think I pay about $100 and something a year. It's the cheapest of my vehicles. Most of these vehicles are very expensive. Like, they're not a few bucks, right? So anyone
I
that
thought we were also including some of like the delivery bikes.
everything would be included as well, but then the restaurant would have to insure it, or they could insure it themselves. However,
Okay, then that's a fair, I mean, that's a fair workaround in terms of the
yeah, the
restaurant.
financial component of the insurance is not very high, right? We're not talking about thousands of dollars. It would.
I know, I'm just thinking, but I'm also just thinking about the person that can't even afford, I'm just putting this out there for talk and for consideration. Like, I know you're saying that it's not a lot for you, or that it's not a lot, but just
Well,
thinking
if
about.
they're using for delivery, it's a work purpose, right? I mean, no one wants to have insurance. I don't want to tell you what I pay for insurance on my cars, but
I know, I don't either, and I don't move it.
just
I don't move it, and I'm still paying, but
you still have to
but
pay
I
it.
get it.
That's
I'm
your
just throwing it
decision
out for
to have it, right? If it's basically that, it comes down to that. If you want to have that kind of vehicle, then you should kind of have that insurance that goes with it.
May I, Marissa, I appreciate you bringing that up again. And I think at when Jose initially brought this to the table, I was really adverse to the idea because of who it might affect. I think there has been some progress on green light law and access to driver's license, those sorts of things that, ultimately what this is for is accountability and making sure that, where there is need, folks can be held accountable and protected in an accountable way. So only through those types of traceable kind of repercussions can accountability be sort of be held. And I think here on 2nd Ave and East 97th, you couldn't get any closer to being at the ER, but still not make it in a traffic accident, which is tragic. And the sort of fresh flowers and clear love that family and community members had for someone who had a terrible traffic accident. Would it have been prevented? Maybe not. I think it escalates the level of being accountable behind either the handlebars or the wheel. I think we have, the financial responsibility. It is another cost, but a cost of doing business, and that's, for the price of safety and the price of a human life, it is in some ways negligible for anyone.
No, agreed. I just brought up as a point to to make, and definitely a life over insurance. Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, and anyone that wants to help, I'm gonna work with Carly for the language, but obviously I always enjoy having help with language. So anyone that wants to help, because I really want to have a resolution in place by next month that we can kind of forward, because we've already spoken in detail about this a few times. And we've had requests from the community itself. Actually, we had a huge complaint from a gentleman last month regarding this, because because of the time constraints, I ended up saying that we'll speak about it this month, and he thought that we would, that was disrespectful, and he wanted to bring it up. And Carly can witness to this because she was also, she actually sent it to me. Carly, did you receive it first, or did I receive? I think you received it first, and then you responded.
Yeah.
But he was very concerned about this, and he has a significant amount of people he claims that are with him that also want protections against these kind of vehicles in the neighborhood. And I'm looking for his email now, but I'm trying to, but
Jose, would it be appropriate to invite them to the meeting or make sure they're aware that we're going to be discussing this next month when we look at, the draft language? I think that kind of input and, recognition and support for public process is something that encourages us all to continue to sort of, do this work in service of community.
no, absolutely. We actually told him that we would bring it up this month as well.
Great.
And I'm not sure if he was present or is present. Maybe he's, I don't even know he's around. We have attendees.
Judith on the record. Judith says these bikes should not be on sidewalks. Agreed, Judith.
Judith now has a tablet, Jessica. Don't let her fool you. Yes, she doesn't have her video on because she doesn't want us to see her, but.
Oh.
I have my voice on and they should not be on sidewalks.
She is now high tech. She has joined the new century. All right.
21, Judith. I'm glad you're back.
Big changes for 21. All right. Okay, so then that's our mission with this particular. So we're gonna work on that language to hopefully have a resolution for next month. And then I believe we are done with old business. Ta-da. Okay.
Jose, I just want to add something. You guys were talking about the commissioner of DOT. The current acting commissioner is Margaret Fagione. She used to be the Manhattan Borough Commissioner for DOT, and she worked a lot with CB11.
Actually, she was really good. That's who the new one is?
That is the acting commissioner of DOT.
She was very active in participating. She came.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
Meeting a few times.
Yeah, so and I know you're familiar with her because of the Second Avenue subway and the extended sidewalks by the viaducts on 106th Street. So
now I know who to complain about, Lyle.
That's right. I just wanted to remind you of that.
Definitely, it's on the record, but I'm definitely complaining, not necessarily about Lyle, but about the fact that we have not had a liaison from DOT here for months.
Since last year.
Well, do you know his boss? Do you know the person that Lyle reports to, Ed Picard?
He came once as well, but we're gonna, I guess,
working through the channels.
Working through the channels.
We'll go through the channels first. We won't go all the way up because then Ed will get mad at us.
Yeah, working through the channels.
I did see that Lyle was present at the district cabinet meeting and offered a report back on open streets, open restaurants. But I think the types of place-specific issues that we're interested in working with DOT on, we need some attention.
Yeah, he gets scared. That's what it is. We scare him.
No, we want to be friends. We'll all work together.
Be friends, but it's not as if Jose knows Margaret or he knows of Margaret, and so that's an easy reach as compared to reaching out to somebody you don't know. He knows her track record.
It's true. Carly, can we find out? Can we check? Obviously not right now, but can we check just how many? Like, when was the last time he was present, so that I have exact information. So when I reach out to Ed, because
the goal is not to throw Lyle under the bus. It's to build a, to have someone here, right?
Maybe Lyle's not our liaison anymore. We don't know. They could have changed it,
Yep.
I mean, when someone doesn't come for 4 or 5 months, it feels like a breakup to me. I think he ghosted us. All right. Do we have any announcements?
I have an announcement.
Yay. Go ahead.
So yes, former Commissioner Trottenberg was appointed the Deputy Transportation Secretary at the national level. So Don, I know that was a critical perspective, but I think it means that, if possible, to have open pipelines of support coming from the federal level, which from the, the status of the Second Avenue subway, we know how, and MTA, we know how important those federal dollars supporting infrastructure really are. I want to say we need to put a bug in the governor's ear, because big infrastructure and West Side projects don't serve the equity function. I know we did have some great support from the mayor towards the Esplanade. My announcement is that in the Recovery for All framework that de Blasio put out, there are a number of points that relate to public realm, specifically new public spaces for neighborhoods hardest hit by COVID. These things don't just materialize overnight. To say that they will happen means that we have to hear that and nod vigorously and say, yes, we were one of those neighborhoods hardest hit by COVID, and this is the type of thing that we want and where we want it in order to kind of have that land. So I think this committee and should, reach out and engage some of the active community partners in the district to, identify opportunities to make those promises, set them up as realities. So that was something worth noting, and make open streets permanent, whatever that means. I don't know whether that's good, whether that's not good. I think it is hand in hand with
I don't know about
the public space question that I would like the committee to take up with in response to the sort of call for a director of the public realm, or a coordinated agency for the public realm that can bring some of the disparate issues together and support communities like ours towards identifying places to invest in that support community building in public, which we know is so important. So good things, but it requires us to be active in responding with having heard them and following up with community partners to say yes, 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 and more, and continuing to ask both from the board and building out those partnerships. So that's all I've got. Nothing specific, but hopefully we can keep doing that work where it's needed.
So Jose, it's Diane. I'm just going to make a real brief announcement. I'm sure that most of the people have heard about it, that the East River Promenade, as well as the Pier 107, got $284 million from the mayor to start the repairs that are much needed on our Esplanade. And that's from 96 all the way up to 124th Street. Just so that everybody knows, that has been on our statement of district needs as far back as 10 years ago. So that's why it's important about the statement of district needs. Took them 10 years, but we're finally getting where we need to be. Any more information, I think, for more details, if you have the time, show up at the Parks Committee to hear more details about it. But I think that's great news considering the amount of work that has to be done on that promenade.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I wanted to echo what Diane said, and also saying that I think it impacts, yes, it's directly parks, but I think it impacts all of our committees, because once that is up and running and complete, then it's going to be something that I think will impact just about all of the various segments here of the community board. But it is wonderful news. Thank you for sharing, Diane.
No problem, and that's also because I now sit on the board of the Friends of the East River Esplanade. So
Diane, what do you call what you are? You know, I think there has been this process of investing in the east side of you know, the Esplanade, but seeing what's possible with you know, the edge of the sort of lower west side, West Street, at-grade crossings, accessibility to their asset along the Hudson River, investment from state and local partners in something that encourages access, youth, sort of use and you know, health by everyone is something that we are, you know, we have our backs kind of cordoned off and turned to that incredible asset that's been out of commission for decades. So props to you for continuing to forge that connection up from, how do you call it? Richard Tucson Way, all the way down, you know, to 59th Street and beyond.
I point this out only because, as you know, it takes time for many of the things that you're talking about tonight to happen, but with continued advocacy, keeping it on our statement of district needs, and making, as you heard tonight, Jose talking about going before the board, going before, you know, public hearings, making statements, resolutions. Eventually, it does work. It does work. So that's all I have.
I have a comment, not an announcement. I was outraged when I heard Ben Kalo say that the Upper East Side has double the budget that we have for garbage. And yeah, when you drive through the Upper East Side, it's usually very clean. The garbage has been picked up. And
Triple.
Consistently, it was triple. Thank you.
Triple.
But it was just really outrageous, and I really think that we need to it's on that preliminary budget as well, but we really need to make a big, I don't know, just noise or outrage or burn tires, whatever it is that we need to make.
So Jose, I agree with you. It's the figure was something like 4 million, and his district was 10 million. But if you look very closely at the numbers for for Manhattan, you will see that the communities of color are the ones that have the least amount of revenues or expense costs or funds, whatever term you want to use, for cleaning, for sanitation. So I think it would also be a good idea to partner with like a CB10, CB9 to talk about the inequity of funding for our communities.
And with that,
I agree.
Is there an opportunity to make a point of the sort of the radical and dynamic change that can happen in a place when more investment is made? I know recently on 125th Street, there has been some attention around increased sanitation services, and that is something that is felt kind of immediately in how people respond. So I think advocating, but there's also proof in the pudding of what happens when you show up. So if there's anything I can do to support making a case, but building coalitions is what you're talking about. That's a great strategy. I'd agree.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out, you've got to look at the numbers, and the numbers tells the story. And Jose, to strengthen your point, I don't think it's a problem to reach out, and I think it would be the health committee on CB10.
Okay, I'll definitely.
Yeah.
Actually, do you have? If someone could send me that link of how that money is distributed throughout the city, I'd really like to see that first before we start reaching out.
There was another thing that there was a meeting that he was asking us to go to with evidence. We had to have specific evidence saying what numbers, he didn't want to say it himself. He wanted us to come and say it ourselves and how it's affecting our neighborhood. And that would have more of a impact. But I cannot remember what this meeting was that he was talking about.
So Jose, for clarification for me, does DSNY fall under public safety or is it environmental?
Since I've been on this committee, it's been public safety. I'm not saying it doesn't go environmental otherwise, or maybe it does, but I think it's a kind of falls. I'm not sure. Carly, you would know.
Yeah, DSNY is actually technically under EOSP's purview. We put the commercial waste zone under this under this committee's agenda because of the impact it has on the streets. But normally DSNY, like for the budget conversation, that's under environment, open space, and parks. That's not to say that you can't comment on it though. It all bleeds into each other.
I bring it up, Jose, to your attention because it used to be under, as you said, public safety.
Yeah.
So.
Well, who's chairing environmental now? Is it
Jessica?
Jessica? Oh, Jessica. I'm gonna talk to her to see if they're doing anything with this.
Right.
And we could always co-collaborate, right?
Yes.
But it was, for a very long time, it was under public safety and transportation.
Jose, regarding your request for information, would Councilmember Kalos be able to offer the thing that you're looking for? Or is that something, Carly, that we know what and where to find?
On the website. On the website. Carly can find it and send it to us.
Yeah.
Some capital trackers and expense trackers.
There you go. Carly's been volunteered.
So Community Board 10, Diane, 9 and 11, or?
Communities of color.
I would like to see everything.
Yeah, communities of color, and that includes even
96 and up on the east side, 110 and up on the west side.
Right.
We know they're
and even some lower east side districts as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. It's an interesting number.
Well, Alphabet City used to be considered of color, but I don't know.
Yes, that's why I said lower east side.
I don't know if that's the case anymore. All right, any other announcements? Well, thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate you all. Hope you all stay warm, stay safe. It's always great to see all of you.
Have a good night.
Likewise, Jose.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.